Good morning, and as usual, we've got with us online Professor Dr. Richard Robertson and in studio Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Ralphie Gonsalves. Good morning and welcome. Prime Minister Gonsalves, good morning, Professor Robertson.
Good morning, Dion. Good morning, JP. And good morning to everybody here at NBC Radio and across St. Vincent and the Grenadines and overseas. And Richie, how you holding up, brethren?
I'm all right. I'm good. I'm good.
You hearing me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Are you there, Richie?
Yes, he's hearing you.
All right.
Yeah.
Good morning to you and your team.
Good morning and thank you, Prime Minister.
Professor Robertson, thank you so much as usual for joining us. If we can just have, before we go into what's the latest, if we can have a recap of what happened yesterday.
Yes, certainly. The volcano is into a period of activity which involves periodic explosions or periods of intense of activity interspersed by periods of earthquakes that we call long period earthquakes. And this pattern has continued from, I believe it started on the 12th, and the first sort of elevated period of activity we had on the afternoon of the 12th, and we had one in the morning of the 13th, in the afternoon of the 13th, and then we had one at 11:32 on the 14th. So what it has is that it seems that what we interpret it's doing is that during the time when you have the earthquakes, which we call long period earthquakes, it's like it's moving, the magma is moving in a sort of a staccato sort of resonant way. It's like it's a jerky way. And we think it's trying to get up. It doesn't have enough gas to move up fast. So it's moving up through the conduit and moving up to the surface, possibly trying to form a dome. But then sometimes it builds up enough pressure, and this is what happens, and the interval is about, it started out around 12 hours, now it's moved to 13, and overnight it went to about 14 or 15 hours. Every time it gets into elevated activity, what it does is that it breaks through, and it produces an eruption plume. It erupts essentially and produces an eruption plume. And the eruptions have, since this pattern started, have decreased in intensity, and the duration between each event has also increased. So it's like its strength to produce a big bang is decreasing. But while it's doing that, it's always trying to reset itself and start back over. So overnight, we were supposed to give, if it had kept up with the pattern, we should have had some sort of elevated activity around 2, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock this morning, that kind of time scale. Well, it built up and it continued, and we didn't actually have very much of activity until about 4:41 or so this morning. It did something, but what it did was more what we will call, there was a little explosion, but it didn't push the ash and the material up in the air very much, and then it went into a period of venting of mainly ash, not very strong venting in a sort of pulsatory way. And the ash plume, the cloud didn't actually get to, we estimate, more than about 4,000 feet. And a lot of, because of the wind direction and because it's not getting very high, when the ash doesn't get very high, dominantly the wind blows towards the western side of the volcano. So it blew the ash towards the southwest. Some people on the western side of St. Vincent might have seen it's very hazy out the coast. It's possible that some of the ash might have come inland. But generally, the ash, it was pumping out ash, and it's still, to a certain extent, mainly pumping out probably a little bit more steam than ash. But it went on for that for a few minutes, and that was it. That was it in terms of the elevated, the period when it has a lot of activity at the top, where it's pushing out material. And we are currently now into a period of, again, the long period earthquakes. So it's almost like if it's trying to have an explosive eruption, but there probably isn't sufficient gas down there, and the conditions are not sufficiently correct for it to actually pressurize enough to produce an explosion that's very big. So that's kind of how we think, what we think as a kind of working hypothesis of what's happening. Now, if that holds, and there's no guarantee that would hold, if that holds, what we'd expect is that as the days go on, the interval between the periods when it's sort of doing something at the top, at the mountain, would increase, and the strength of whatever it's doing would decrease. It probably would go to a situation where it have the gas plumes that go up are getting smaller. They probably have more gas than ash, and there's a possibility that eventually the magma that is trying to come out that is having a sort of a hard time because it doesn't have any energy, that much energy, and the condition of the conduit is not the same, that it's possible that you might have some sort of dome forming, and that might be what goes on until it does something else. So that's the pattern now. Now that doesn't mean, even if it stops now in the sense that it starts going to boom, so it starts being explosive, I don't think that means that it's finished what's doing. From all signs that we have, it's sort of still, it's still doing its thing. And we're not quite sure how much magma, how much material is beneath the surface that wants to come out and that could come out. So I think even though it goes into a period of quiet, that is quiet dome growth, sort of more the kind of effusive activity we had earlier on between December and April, we would not be surprised if at some point it goes explosive again. We think currently that it's more likely that the explosions would be sort of closer to the kind of size of the ones that we had later on in this period, not as intense as when it started. The intense period when it was putting out a lot of ash. We think that is probably less likely to be repeated, and more likely to be repeated is more discrete explosions where you have what we call volcanic explosions, and you have pyroclastic flows going on the valley. And that could go on for, it could go on for weeks, or it could go on for months, with these elevated periods when it's doing something and then it's quiet, before it actually stops and goes back to sleep, and we have another, couple of hundred, we hope it's a couple of 100 years, but more than likely less than 100 years before it does something again.
And now, Richie,
Yeah.
you said that this particular heightened activity, which came around 4:41 or thereabouts,
Yeah.
that it lasted only a few minutes, and
yeah. I would say it probably in the end totally lasted close to an hour, but in terms of the most intense period, it was only a few minutes. Yeah.
Okay. Now you said in those circumstances and given wind direction and everything else, it would go west. Now,
yes, if it doesn't go very high, the wind tends to blow toward the west.
Yes.
At the lower levels.
How well, that's it. Not too far down west, because I haven't seen much of it in Kingstown.
Yeah. Well, that means that it's probably going more offshore than coming close to the shore. Which is good.
It looked a little hazy this morning.
Yeah. That's how you will see it. You will see it as a haze out at the sea. If it gets closer, it probably get more grayish looking.
Now this pattern which we are having, I take it that compared to what we had and what you have said, it's better news than hitherto, but yet we are in an uncertain state that it can go back to the period of intensity, but less likely.
Yes, that's correct. Yes, it so far it hasn't shown us clearly and unequivocally that it's going back to sleep. So therefore, I don't want people to get the impression that
Absolutely.
This is going back to sleep. No.
Absolutely. No, there are some practical consequences here. Yesterday, when we listened to you in the morning, you said that the intervals are about 12 hours apart.
Yes.
Now, this particular interval, the one which, in fact, I listened to you carefully. So yesterday, when at midday, I was told there was an explosion and persons were getting very antsy around me. I said, well, Richie had said to us that it would come in about 12 hours, and it came, the one before came at 11:38. It is not with mathematical precision, but so it's there or thereabouts. And now you're telling me that this one is about 14 to 16 hours
Yes,
since
it's actually longer. Yeah.
is actually longer. No, the there's a practical implication why I raised this. Yesterday, because naturally, while I'm talking to you, I have to make sure that Garth Saunders sorts out the matter with his team and the water. They were up in They were up in Jennings, clearing the road, and they were up in Hermitage on the leeward side, clearing the road because Hermitage is important for the water in up to Mount Win, coming down to Mount Win,
Yeah.
and therefore the Barley conurbation, Barley, Wallilabu, Curtains, that whole area there, which is a big area, big population area. Well, you're a Barley man too. Your
Of
grandfather from Barley,
course. Yes.
one side. Now, the when they went up, and in the case of Jennings, Jennings is important for the entire windward side of the island, from Byra, come all the way down to well, even close to Villa, and places in between, obviously inland. But the workers had gone up there, and when they heard the explosion, naturally they decide that they're going to leave. And at one level, you can't blame them because they hear it, they don't know what is happening. The kind of activity which we are seeing, insofar as this is predictable, they're going back up today because Brian De Silva is heading a team going up to Jennings, and Garth Saunders is heading one he's going down to Hermitage. The senior people are going to take a look further and see what's happening. Do they have any exceptional worry when they're up there working, or if they hear any? I mean, it's going to take a while now before anything happens, according to this pattern.
Yes, according to this pattern, the next time something should happen is tomorrow early evening or something like that. Not certainly during the day today. And that said, the areas that you identified are areas that are not on the volcano. So the most that they will be affected by is ash, if there was anything happens, that is. So the things that kill people from volcanoes, the pyroclastic density currents, which are very dangerous, they are nowhere near there. The ballistics and the bombs, they're not anywhere near there. So even if something was to happen, the most that you will have, yes, you will have some loud intimidating sounds when you see a ash plume, but what you will have is ash. So in summary, even if something happens, the only thing that will be a problem is ash, more so in Jennings than in Hermitage. And secondly, given the pattern we have, if it remains established, we don't expect to see any period of elevated activity or anything from the volcano at its mouth coming out before sometime tomorrow, well, later on this evening, 16 hours from now, which is around that time.
Now, yesterday, you said that while there were pyroclastic flows in the event of 1138 from 1138 last evening, the night before,
right,
and that it went west in what we call the Wet Wallibu River, and you said it looked as though it probably went also into Rabaca, but you'll have to confirm that. Did you get any confirmation about Rabaca?
Yes, I mean, Rabaca currently only have mud flow deposits, which is remobilized, material that was and ash and other material that the volcano chucked out higher up on the Rabaca. When the rain falls, it comes down. That's all we have. So the pyroclastic density currents, the pyroclastic flows, whatever you want to call them, they didn't get further down the valley. They obviously got higher up. We're not sure how high up, but certainly not down by the bridge and down the river where people where you would normally, see any interaction with people.
Now, I understand that this afternoon you're going to go and do some investigations on the western side.
Yes.
some field work. What that involves, and what would we learn from that?
Well, of course, we're just so you know, we're being safe. So we're not actually physically going on the land because we have told people to stay off the volcano. We can't very well go on the volcano because we sent the wrong
Yes.
message. So we go in we get the assistance of the Coast Guard, and we're going to do two things. One, we're going to try to get an estimate of how much gas is coming out of the volcano, which means that we're going to carry an instrument, a special instrument that uses the interference that the volcanic plume has with sunlight to measure how much sulfur dioxide is coming out of the volcano. We tried to do that a couple of days ago, but the way in which the plume, how the instrument works is that you start from outside where you think the volcanic plume is. You go under the plume, and then you continue going until you get out of the plume, so that it could start at sort of background, then it measures and it goes back to background. When we tried to do it, I think it's 2 days ago, or was it yesterday? We didn't get out of the plume because the plume was very wide and it was sort of moving around. Today it looks like it's more finite and more organized, so we hope to get that. So the sulfur dioxide measurements is one of the things that we want to do. We also want to see if we could get a sample of the material at the front. You know, we'll go in close by and take a sample of the pyroclastic flows that came down, certainly wet Wallabu. And we'll see, and we'll also use the time to make observations of the other deposits that you have in the other valleys. It's important to sort of better understand and characterize what came down, because that tells us something about the properties of the material, the magma that came up, and tells us, you know, how it behaves, and therefore allows us to better sort of guess what it's likely to do in the future.
What time you're going to get back at base, having done this investigation, this quote unquote field work?
It depends on conditions. We're going to go from around 2 o'clock. It shouldn't take us more than an hour and a half to do what we're going to do. So probably by 3:30, 4 o'clock at latest, I'll be back at Belmont.
Okay. Well, if you're back by then, I have a CARICOM, Prime Minister Rowley, the chair of CARICOM. We're having a meeting at 3 o'clock this afternoon, the heads of government, to talk about La Soufrière and St. Vincent, the humanitarian relief, recovery, and all the rest. Mm-hmm. It would be good if, when you return, if we touch base with you, that you can link and tell the heads of government what's happening. But probably before that, we could get somebody from the Seismic Research Center to give an update up to the point when you go on to do your field work. But I think they would like to hear from you, if that is okay with you.
Yes, certainly. I think we could arrange for the director of seismic, Dr. Joseph, to do it. And while I'm on that, I've heard people refer to me as the director of seismic. I'm no longer the director of seismic, so please, I'm just the head of the team here. I used to be the director. I'm not the director anymore. Just the person who's in charge of the team.
Okay. Now, how your conditions, have they physical conditions, have they improved since yesterday?
Well, I should tell you, I'm still in the same clothes I was in yesterday when I spoke to you. No, we haven't gotten any water yet. Not running water. So I'm hoping we see something soon, because otherwise we're gonna get a bit sneaky in the room here.
Yes, but I know you had some challenges.
Yeah, we have water sort of in jugs and stuff, but because we're not sure exactly when we get in more, we'd probably be a bit, you know, we'll be a bit frugal. But otherwise, we have everything else we need. I think I was telling you about the pig. We have a pet pig that comes every day outside. It's still there. I saw it this morning when I was watching the volcano.
What you give it name Soufrière?
Well, I don't want to give it that name because I might have to might have to do other things with it.
I see the animal lovers. The animal lovers and the Rastafari brethren and sisters, you like to hear that.
So I wouldn't say anything but that.
No, I know you had some other challenges. Braxa came and helped?
Yes, I must say, I must give full kudos for Brax. When we first came here earlier on in the year, I think I pestered you a lot about getting the observatory up to a state where people could stay and live. That's been done. We have had a couple of problems. We have leaks, we have things to fix. As soon as we call them, they're right here. And I think up to 2 days ago, they came and did something. So I must give full kudos to them. They've provided fantastic support. So great.
Well,
Thank you very much, Braxton.
I'm sure Ken Bartholomew and his team would be very happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Okay then. Well, if there is nothing more, Dion, you have anything you want to ask?
Not at this time, because we'll
Is-
check
is
in
there-
with him after he
Is there
finishes
any
the
question
application.
comes in on the WhatsApp
Yeah, there's some questions, but questions which he had
as
he's
explained?
answered over the period
Okay,
of time
okay
already.
then.
So we're going to let him go. So
Thanks,
that he
thanks
can-
very much. Thanks very much, Richie. Well, you brought us
Yes, thank
you
you.
brought us somewhat better news this morning. We're not out of the woods, but we are seeing a little light.
Yes, indeed. We have to make use of it.
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks.
All right.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Professor. We'll
Bye-bye.
talk with you a little bit later on as we continue in our program. Prime Minister's over to you.
Sure. I'm wondering if GAT. I don't know if GAT has reached yet into down at Hermitage, because when I called him, he was on his way, and he could probably tell us. I don't know. Some places in the area when you go there, the signal is a little problematic. So if we can get him.
I'll try and make contact, Prime Minister.
Yes. Also, somebody I would like to be on standby, because there's a developing issue in some of the shelters in relation to COVID-19, and I'm fearful that if we are not, if we ourselves, everybody involved, if we're not careful, we can have a spike which could create a real danger, in addition to what we're having with the volcano. And it'd be good to hear Simone Keyser Beach, the chief medical officer, speak to that issue, because some numbers that I've seen, and one or two, it's not yet, doesn't appear alarming as yet, but the uptick in one or two areas and some anecdotal evidence is giving me a little concern. Well, more than a little concern.
Okay, I'd reach out to both. If I don't get Garth now, then I'll go directly
To Simone. Fine. I want to say this. People are continuing to provide assistance, and I will talk, or at least pledges of assistance, and I will talk about them as I go along, just broadly. But there's one which came to my attention, and not surprisingly, one by the Seventh-day Adventists, the St. Vincent and Grenadines Mission of Seventh-day Adventists, known simply here as Seventh-day Adventists. There's a memorandum of understanding with themselves and NEMO. It becomes effective on April the 18th. And if Michelle Forbes didn't sign it yesterday, and she's hearing me, that she should proceed and go ahead and sign it. And of course, the president of the SVG mission, Seventh-day Adventist mission, Pastor Dermot Batiste, would also sign. But it says here, the Seventh-day Adventist SDA will supply, prepare, package, and distribute a total of 1,200 meals daily, from Sundays to Fridays, 600 being lunch, 600 being supper, for a period of 4 weeks, from Sunday, April the 18th to Friday, May the 14th. And then it says that they may renew it, and they're providing the funding. I'll come back to it. Garth is on.
Prime Minister, we've got Dr. Keyser online.
Okay.
Good morning, Dr. Keyser.
Hi, good morning, Leon. Morning.
Simone, I don't know if you were hearing me.
Yes.
Well, you can pick up from where I was speaking about COVID. I don't have to go over the story.
Okay, So good morning, PM. So on the 13th, we had 6 cases, and on the 14th, we had another 6 cases. But especially worrying is the fact that we have now picked up 5 COVID-positive patients among evacuees. 2 of those persons were actually were in the homes of relatives, so that we have exposure within a private home. And the other 3 persons, 1 in one shelter, exposing 12 persons in that family, and 2 persons in another shelter, exposing around 8 persons in that shelter immediately as close contacts. So we are in the process now of doing contact tracing and extensive testing of those contacts, but we are extremely concerned. In one situation, no one in the shelter was vaccinated. So that's all vulnerable persons. So we are continuing to do testing in the shelters. Earlier, we have found no COVID-19, but as we were very concerned, we continue to do testing. One of the cases was actually symptomatic. That's what alerted us to the presence there, but in the others, there was a history of contact. So we are working on those. We are very concerned about the spread of COVID. Remember, it's mostly asymptomatic in the shelters and with persons who have moved into homes, and also because we also have community spread in other communities, people moving in and out of the shelters, mixing in the community. They might pick up something in the community and bring it back in. So we're really stressing that persons try as much as possible. We know it's very, very difficult to keep your mask on, but now you have 2 reasons. You have COVID and you have the ash. We are going to try to get more masks into the shelters, generally working along with mobilization and the shelter managers. And we are really asking persons to cooperate, work with us, work together, as a shared responsibility, and comply with our request to be tested, because we've been getting resistance even to do the testing. Not even talking about the vaccination here. Just to do the testing, the rapid antigen testing, we've been getting quite a bit of resistance to even get that done. We need to know what's happening.
And we remind everybody that the testing is voluntary, and so too is the vaccination, though we are strongly encouraging both.
We are strongly encouraging both. And it's for this exact reason. We need to know what's happening, because as we all know in St. Vincent, we were the first country in the region, I think, that started doing asymptomatic testing. And we know throughout the world, we all know now that the majority of persons are symptomatic. But what we also know is that asymptomatic persons, 1/3 of the persons who are COVID positive end up with long COVID, meaning they end up with problems with their lungs, diabetes, chronic brain fog, brain damage, not damage, neurological abnormalities, so that they might have persistent headaches and so on. So even though you don't get the fever, cough, and cold, which would be the typical symptoms of COVID, once you contract the COVID, you have a 1 in 3 chance of having long-term effects. So we really want us to know. Let us find out who has it by testing. It is voluntary, but it's for everybody's benefit. You want to protect yourself and your persons around you in that group in the shelter or where you are staying, or if you have brought persons into your homes, you need to know what your status is. So the testing is voluntary. The vaccination is voluntary. We have sufficient testing supplies. We have sufficient vaccination supplies. So we really encourage everybody. Let us work together to prevent a second catastrophe.
Now, let me give you an opportunity to dispel something, because it has been drawn to my attention that some persons have been speaking falsehoods in some circles, in some media platforms, that the government has insisted that to come into the shelter you have to be tested. Is there any truth in that?
There's absolutely no truth in that. Absolutely no truth. You come into the shelter because you need to be there. we're not going to say that you can't go in. That's not true at all. That's not how it is. We ask that you be tested at some point. We ask that if you're willing, we can vaccinate you. But there's no testing or vaccination requirement to get into any shelter in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
But from the very beginning, even before we had vaccines, we had long established that the way to control the COVID, that is to say, controlling, not doing the extent of the immunization, which is another level of protection, was to identify, to test, to contact trace, to isolate, to quarantine.
That's right. Rapid identification.
And those remain, plus the existing protocols. We know that washing your hands when we don't have a lot of water is problematic.
Yes.
But we have to wear the masks.
We have to wear the mask. And even the advice coming out of the CDC recently was that the sanitization or the cleaning of surfaces was less of a key measure. Rather, the mask, you need to wear your mask. So, as you said, PM, it is the quick identification. How are we going to do quick identification? By testing. Once you have identified, we quarantine, we separate persons as much as possible. We know now that proper use of a mask allows for that separation, reduces this likelihood of spread.
But if we don't do the testing, because people, as you say, most of the persons, at least half of them, are asymptomatic. That is to say, they don't have any symptoms of temperature or any flu or anything of the sort. None of the usual symptoms of COVID.
Right.
And that they're walking around in the shelters.
Yes.
And across the country. But they could have COVID.
They could have COVID.
And they can give people.
Right. So even by the time you pick up, if we wait, because some persons will say, oh, well, I didn't have a cough, I didn't have this, so they're not reporting anything. They're not saying anything to the shelter managers because they don't think anything's wrong with them. And then by the time you pick up somebody with a fever, that person has been all over the place. And remember, the infectious period is 24 to 48 hours before the symptoms start. So for the 2 to 3 days before that fever comes up or that loss of smell or so on, they have been walking around, interacting, talking up close with persons, allowing that virus to spread. So that we need to do this testing even without symptoms.
Well,
do it early.
The thing also, Simone, is that the persons who are managing shelters and working in the shelters, it would be strongly advised that they also test and vaccinate, because they're going and coming.
Yes.
And they can easily be spreaders, including in their homes.
Yeah, they can bring it in and they can take it out. So definitely. So when we're talking about testing, we're not talking about just the evacuees. We're talking about everybody in the shelter. And then testing is going on. So we're still, all of our clinics out of the red and the orange zones, all of our clinics and hospitals are open. We're still doing testing there as necessary. We're still offering a vaccination. So as we go into the shelters today, we're going to ask again and encourage that we are allowed to do the testing, and those persons who were interested in the vaccination, we will do that too. But in these two shelters that we are particularly concerned about today, we're going to do massive testing as part of the contact tracing.
Now, this morning, when I was getting my security brief from the Commissioner of Police, one of the matters which we talk about routinely is the health and condition and safety of the police officers.
Yes.
And he reported to me that there are 2 police officers who tested positive yesterday for COVID. I don't know if you're aware of that.
I'm aware of one. I was checking with our team a while ago on the 2nd, but I am definitely aware of one police officer. And yes, again, the safety of the police, they are frontline. You remember in our prioritization
Absolutely.
to be tested, even when we were just doing the testing earlier on in 2020. Remember, PM, when we were screening, doing wide screening, we focused a lot on the police, in all of the police stations and so on. And even the vaccination drive, we also have the police because they're first responders, they're frontline workers, they interact with so many persons. We strongly encourage them to get the testing done and or get your vaccinations done.
And we can't afford at this particular point in time, when the security circumstances are heightened,
That's right.
that we have to have our police officers who are already stretched,
Yes.
to have the manpower further diminished by COVID illness, and I just want to remind everybody the police still have to be about and doing investigation for this or that. I mean, this morning in the security report, I got a report that there was a homicide last night.
Oh, dear.
So that there are multiple sets of challenges.
There's also, PM, the fact that whenever one person tests positive, their contacts around them that have to be either quarantine or very limited activity. So
Absolutely.
If a person tests positive, he's working with other policemen around him. That the impact that is going to have, the domino effect that has on the services and our capacity to respond and protect is significant.
Yes.
So we need to be cognizant of all of those things, and we really encourage persons to.
And I think also that we have to bear in mind the numbers of persons who have evacuated and who are actually in shelters and who are in other persons' homes.
Yes.
This morning, in getting a briefing from Michelle Forbes of NEMO, she tells me that the numbers in the shelters are now 4,200, and the numbers registered in households is in excess of 6,000. Yes, she told me that this morning. So that the point is this, and we don't have everybody. We don't have everybody who is in private homes or I'm talking evacuees.
Yes.
And some, of course, are in guest houses and so on and so forth. So it's a large and growing number.
And an increasing likelihood of many small clusters, because persons have moved into homes. They're sharing, so you're sharing. So a home that normally would have, say, 3 or 4 persons might now have 8 or 9, and so the capacity, you can't space out as you would like to do relative to the COVID. You can't wash as you would like to do, even though that is improving, thank God. And the likelihood of spread. We know that the likelihood of spread of the COVID, we have community spread as a reality, is much greater. So we really encourage persons to, consider, think about it, discuss with your healthcare team, your healthcare provider, and see your nearest clinic. We're there waiting and ready.
Dr. Keys, I have a note here. 16,000 masks been pledged by Stellantis in the UK, and they're sending them to St. Vincent to the Lions Club for they would be passed on as part of distribution. My brother works with the company, so they have made a donation to St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Very good.
Really appreciate that. Thank you. I know also that PAHO, a team from PAHO, is arriving on the BDF today, and I think they also have a consignment of masks which will go through Unity Social Development, and they've also sent some for the healthcare providers for us to distribute. So working with NEMO as always, and with all of the other partners and willing persons, we're going to get those masks out to persons to increase the availability of masks throughout St. Vincent.
Thanks
Okay?
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Simone.
Okay.
All right, all the best, Dr. Keyser. We will try to reach at this point.
No. Gas.
Saunders.
Very
Yes,
important.
yes. We'll try to reach
And
out.
while you're trying to get Gart, I just want to say that the Seventh-day Adventists in this regard, 1,200 meals from April the 18th to Friday the 14th, every day, 600 Sunday to Fridays. You know, they don't work, Saturdays their Sabbath. So they have 600 being for lunchtime, 600 being for supper. That's for a 4-week period. And they're saying that they may continue, they may renew the partnership for another month thereafter. And I want to thank them. The Seventh-day Adventists in this regard, they're not only good Samaritans, they're great Samaritans. The problem of food, and God would be talking about water, the problem of food in the shelters is more or less sorted out. The problem is more or less sorted out, though there are hiccups here and there. But the problem of food for evacuees, in private homes and those who had gone into guest houses and the like, it is a growing problem. Months ago, I had indicated to Nemo that we will probably arrive at that point. And you will know that I've been harping on this. And I'm asking persons to register with Nemo. In fact, I asked yesterday when we had a cabinet meeting. I called in Michelle Forbes and Benji, the Assistant Commissioner of Police who is in charge of logistics, to say to them that they must have the shelter managers take the information. A shelter manager can't say to somebody in the community where people are staying in a private home that they want to get some food and some water and say that, well, because they're in private home, they must go and register with Nemo. The shelter can take the information. Some shelters are taking the information. But I'm asking all the shelter managers to take the information so that, and that information be relayed to Nemo. There's a database which is being prepared and it's updated all the time. And in addition to Nemo and what they have there, I also have somebody who helping me coordinate at the office of the Prime Minister too, which is overall in charge of Nemo, the Minister of National Security, so that we can get these numbers right, because I know from persons who contact me that there are more persons. I know Carlos James in North Leeward and Montgomery Daniel in North Windward. They have teams who are feeding in to this information. And all of this is going to social development, the Ministry of Social Development. And social development, they're preparing food packages. Now, the scale of the problem is such, though, that we have had to seek other kinds of arrangements to bolster these existing arrangements, including with NGOs, including international NGOs with which we are interfacing, because this will be over the few next coming months, weeks and months, a growing problem. I know we have, and food is coming into the country in the supermarkets. Gart is here?
Yes, we finally got
yes,
him.
good.
He's in the mountains, but we made another call, so we got him.
Gart, you're up in Hermitage yet?
I am halfway up the mountain.
Okay.
The first team has already gone into Hermitage, so they're still coming back to meet me to take me up. Yeah.
Well, tell us what you're going to do in Hermitage and what you're hoping to achieve today.
Yeah, well, we are hoping to continue the cleaning of the intake. It's very, the asphalt is very heavy all in Spring Village up the mountain and also in Hermitage. But we're going to clean the intake and try to get water back into our system so we can supply the 500,000 gallon storage tank at Belle Isle, which would help out with the distribution in Barley and Peter's Hope and the surrounding area. So we hope that by the end of today we would have achieved that goal.
Okay. Now,
Yeah.
I want you to tell me what is happening now on the eastern side, up in
Yes.
Jennings Valley.
Yes. On the eastern side, the teams have already been dispatched and they should be into the Jennings Valley shortly.
Brian De Silva is heading that team.
Yes, exactly. And they, on their way up, they're going to install, hopefully, a storage tank in the South Rivers area at the point where we connected that spring,
Yes.
so that we can have residents in the area go there and collect water from that spring in the meantime, and we will feed the water down, hopefully, to as far as Bellevue, so that persons, Bellevue, Park Hill, and South and the rest of South Rivers should get some water today in the interim until we get the Jennings system.
When are you likely, you think, to get Jennings up?
I think they're going to use most of the day in doing the cleaning. We started the cleaning yesterday, but as I mentioned to you, we had to run out. But they are emptying, so they've already emptied all the tanks, and they're going to refill a filter, and then start hopefully putting water in the storage tank sometime late this afternoon, sometime after lunch, hopefully.
So tonight you think Jennings might be up?
We should. I'm hopeful that we'll get water back in the system. Yeah.
Because you see what happens is this. Let's take, even though you're doing the alternative with the old spring in South Rivers, and you see you'll get it to Park Hill and Bellevue. The problem is this, because Dr. Smith and Village are above the level of the spring.
Yes.
They're not going to be able to get, because the water is gravity fed.
That's correct.
So that
those persons we will help with trucking, but they can also, if they
come down to the flat.
Exactly.
So people from Dr. Smith and Village, down the hole also.
Yeah.
Can come down when when you think the water is going to come across from the spring in South Rivers?
It's actually across the river. It should be on sometime this morning.
Okay, then has that water been tested, Garth?
Yes, we've tested that water already. Yes.
So you can drink that.
Yes, you'll be able to drink. Yes.
Okay. What about the water generally in the system? People are asking, can you drink it?
Yes. Oh, yes, you can drink it. You can drink it. But persons who are transferring water from container to container, that may pose a threat. So
they should boil it.
I think they should boil it at the end point, because we have no control over what happens after it's delivered.
So
yeah.
As I understand it, then,
yeah,
from the leeward side, Layou is up, Dalloway is up, Mamoon is up, Majorca is up, Montreal is up. That's 5. How much water they provide to the system?
They provide close to 75%, all combined. What we have though from the Montreal system is a distribution problem, which we are going to work on during the day today, because there are some areas that got water in the Eastern George area, and some areas haven't gotten yet. So we have a distribution issue which we have to investigate today.
Because places like Diamond and areas where you have some dirt roads where apparently the trucks haven't been going. You have to bear that in mind, eh?
Yeah. Diamond is fed from the Jennings system.
I know that's fed from Jennings, but
Yeah, so we have to go into those areas too, you know. We are sending some of the private trucks in those areas to, to hopefully alleviate the situation.
Now, what about distribution of water, which has come in from outside of St. Vincent and the Grenadines? How is that going?
Well, that is going okay. We have offloaded quite a bit of water in the port Kingstown, and that is so distribution from there is likely to continue. It's the trucks are being diverted to that area, to the port, and we also have the. You were saying something, Pierre?
Yesterday you were telling me that you were going to divert a vessel.
Yes.
Down to Barley. Has that vessel gone down to Barley?
The vessel could not berth in Barley because of the shallow depth. So that so the captain of that vessel had to abort that, and I found that out this morning when I passed there.
So Barley is still wanting for water.
Barley is still wanting for water.
What are we doing immediately then?
Trucks. They continue to be supplied with trucks from Penniston. The Penniston underground system, so they're being trucked water. So that's why we're giving this permitted
some priority.
Priority, yes.
No, but in the meanwhile today we have to send in Barley.
Yes, of course. Goes without saying. Yeah.
Oh, okay then. So we may solve substantially the problem in Hermitage and the problem in Jennings today. Now, I spoke to Richie Robertson, Professor Robertson, this morning, and I raised the question with him that yesterday at midday, when there was the explosion, your workers, not unnaturally, left Jennings and they left.
They were overcome with fear, yes, and they came out.
Well, I wouldn't say fear. They were overcome with excessive caution or just caution. It's a human impulse.
Yeah.
But I had it clarified on the radio with Richie. Richie said that where they are, they don't have to worry. No pyroclastic flows are either coming to Jennings or going to
I suspect that.
Going to Hermitage.
Or Hermitage, yeah.
And
that
that
maybe ash, I suppose.
And that the worst would be the ash. And in any event, the next time you have to worry about any explosive event, anything at all, that it is going to be 16 hours from 4:41 this morning, roughly. So that's early evening, so they could have the full day.
Okay.
He said to me that persons are using the river at 14 to wash their vehicles.
You using the river at 14?
At 14. 14, 14.
River 14.
River 14, no.
River 14 in South River.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, okay. Uh-huh.
So I report that to you in respect of, is that, I'm asking you to answer.
Well, if they're using it at River 14, that's downstream of our intake, so that's not a problem.
Okay.
The intake is above, is upstream of River 14.
Okay.
The River 14, the Gecko River 14 you're speaking about.
Yes.
And below.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, but but what I want to ask, but people who below that who would be using who may be using water from the South River, the less activity we have above, the better.
Yes.
So anybody who is using the river water, they would be advised to boil it.
Yes, they should boil it. But the water we are getting is actually from the spring.
I know. I was talking about a separate source, because if you have a river, you have a river running through your village and you want water, you will go there.
Yeah.
You will exactly right.
Is a natural human thing.
That goes for all rivers, and I was hoping that the public health officials would have at least gotten involved, and at least just advise persons who may be so tempted that they should exercise extreme caution and boil water.
I
They've
think
sent out
I think
something,
there was a
Mr.
release on that.
Saunders. They have. And
Okay,
I
good.
read it
Okay.
this morning as part of our
Okay,
program.
very good.
Yes.
Very
They
good.
sent out something. I saw that. But
Okay, good.
in nowadays, it not only has to be sent out as a release, it has to be put on the various platforms and so on
It
and so
is
on
as
and so
well to
forth.
Prime
Okay,
Minister.
very
Yeah.
good.
Okay,
Well,
very good.
all
Okay.
right. Well, Gat, I don't want to
Okay,
hold you
thanks
up.
a
I
lot.
just
Okay.
I want to thank you for your. A lady from Camden Park called me this morning. She is accommodating a lot of people, and she says, "Well, they haven't had, they want food and water." I say, "No, you must have water. Your water must have come at least yesterday." She said, "Yes, yes, yes, yes. The water came yesterday afternoon, because you told me because
Yeah.
I was testing to see what you told me, whether it is confirmed on the ground, because she would have been getting from Hermitage.
Trust but verify.
Trust but verify. Thank you very much, Gat.
Okay, thanks a lot.
I appreciate.
Okay, all right. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Now,
All right. Thank you.
I want to, the point I wanted to make here, Nemo is taking a lot of information for persons who are in private homes, evacuees, who want assistance with food and also with water. But we have to get the information. We have names already of about 6,000 persons. Of course, 6,000 persons, it doesn't mean 6,000 homes, because there are multiple persons in each home. And we are seeking to provide food packages. The Ministry of Social Development is doing that. But the Ministry of Social Development, they're not able to do as many as the demand warrants. What we have had here now from social development, from Seventh-day Adventists, would help greatly with meals, and Michelle would have to say to them whether they put them in the shelters or they distribute between shelters and particular homes. It's very important that all that be properly coordinated. But for the longer haul as we go in, we are having problems. We're going to have problems with people with getting food. Listen, that there is not food in the supermarkets. But not everybody has the money. So that is an issue which we need to have all the data. Of course, we have 6,000 names already, and that number, I'm sure, will grow. It doesn't mean that persons who are people who are not in need shouldn't go and put a burden on the system. So we have to have a certain reasonableness in this regard. Because if you're not really in need, but you put your name down for food packages, it means that somebody who's really in need may not get the food packages. I just want to make that point. So I'm asking for good neighborly care and reasonableness. Similarly, until we get back the water supply system fully, and improvements have been made over the last 24, 48 hours, and I want to thank the water authorities, management, and workers. And water is coming in. More water is coming in from outside. But if a truck comes into a village and it goes, let us say, in the middle of the village. Persons who are at the bottom and who are at the top, and the truck is there, I'm asking them, leave your house and go for it. Because the truck can't stop in the center, it can't stop in the bottom, come to the center and go to the top. Because we don't have all the trucks to go, one to go to the bottom, one to go to the middle, and one to go to the top of the village. So let us use the resources which we have in the most efficient manner. And I'm asking, therefore, for cooperation. And clearly, persons who are getting food packages, we have to do that in a manner where there is decentralization, but we can't do the decentralization in a way to deliver to every home. It's not because you will have hundreds and hundreds of homes, and that operation is problematic, and therefore what we have to seek to do is to provide food. Some cases we'll have to provide actual meals, but you'll have to provide the food depending on the persons are shut in and things like that and can't do things for themselves. But what we have to do is to send the food what you can cook, and therefore to give you for a particular period of time, not just for a day. And we have to understand that this is a massive operation. I don't want to go into all the details. And more information will come to the public with that regard through NEMO and social development. But we are fine tuning that system.
Dr. Keyser, Prime Minister has sent an additional message.
Yes.
The Health EOC is providing the displaced healthcare workers with supplies from NEMO supplies. So that's a message from.
Okay.
Dr.
Well, you heard that the displaced workers in health, they're getting their supplies.
And someone is asking a question. My blind elderly father is staying with family. How can I get his name on NEMO's list so he can get some
Okay.
help?
Well, I was just saying you can call NEMO, and if not, I've just asked, and I'm hoping the shelter managers are hearing me, that you don't wait until Michelle Forbes tells you. I happen to be the chairman of the National Emergency Management Council. Though I don't get involved in these day-to-day details, it is a matter which I discussed with Michelle Forbes yesterday when I brought her to cabinet. As I said, she and ACP Benjamin, that I'm asking the shelter managers to assign somebody on their team to take the information. They can take it themselves too, to take the information. What information you need? The basic ones. You need the name of the host family. You need the names of the persons who are there, roughly their ages, their physical condition, very briefly, and their contact telephone number, and what do they need. And you send that information to the relevant person. The shelter managers will know who they contact at NEMO, and that information goes into a database, which is sent to social development for the purposes of doing packaging. As I say, we are seeking for the longer haul assistance from a particular NGO, and I'll talk about some things which we did yesterday in the outreach overseas, but also the government. We are seeking to, in addition to bringing back a love box locally, we are also seeking to have boxes which are already packaged coming from external sources. So it's different sets of things happening. People will buy food at the supermarket. People will be fed in the shelters. Social development will do things, and they're doing meanwhile. Then we will have the love boxes, and then we will have NGOs locally and globally helping out with this. Like, for instance, like the Seventh-day Adventist churches. And because we have to think of this for a long haul, and that is the manner in which we have been trying to formulate the work. Now, something happened yesterday. I must speak to it. I'll read an email which I got from a concerned Vincentian who lives abroad. This came yesterday at 2:36 p.m. And everything in this, I'm agreeing with. Good afternoon, Prime Minister. As you have rightly suspected, hence your reasons for getting in some security force before time. You are right to be proactive in this regard. I just saw on Facebook live video of people intercepting the water truck just after it left the wharf and stole water, said in the droves. Well, that is probably an exaggeration. This kind of behavior should not be tolerated and must stop. Agree 100%. If not, then law and order will give way to wide-scale looting and mayhem. Absolutely, I agree with that. Now, I want to say this, and people don't. When I talk some things, people don't listen as carefully, and when we issue releases, they don't read them carefully. And then one person misinterprets, then the person who misinterprets misinforms persons, and it's a chain. Now, this water which came yesterday is for a big local NGO from a government from overseas. And that's fine, and we welcome that. And that particular NGO is also within the framework of the National Emergency Management Organization. The water came. The NGO organized the trucks. And the trucks proceeded to go out the gate. And one of the trucks as you come out of the gate and coming on at NIS, the plastic which was wrapping, I've been advised, I didn't see it myself, but it was reported to me, was loose. And some persons who were around, some young men, took off some bottles. And then later on, I understand the same thing happened coming around Hospital roadside. I spoke to the NGO concerned, a very responsible NGO. I said, look, you're moving these things. Talk to us about security. Because the morning when it was reported to me that this water came, I spoke to the people at the Port Authority and said, put the water on a boat and take it to Otley Hall. And let Nemo store it and put it in the side and put it with the name for this NGO. That is why the water which came in from Trinidad, we put them on a boat and we sent them down to be stored at a particular locale and security provided. In any national emergency management operation, security is of vital importance. I don't want to make what happened worse than it is. Neither do I want to downplay it. But it was not a case where there was a hijacking of a truck. It's person pulling off water because persons need it. I'm not justifying that. But that could have been avoided if there was proper, in my view, I may be wrong, but in my view, if all the communication was done when the water is being moved for the security. Because the port had said to me, well, look, PM, we will do that if by this evening they don't come and move the water. But security is always a concern of mine. If you have a scarce commodity like water, people need water. And if there are persons who will try and take it. But if you take it in that manner, it is not being distributed in a proper way in accordance with need. So I'm asking everybody who are receiving items, and particularly NGOs who may be receiving significant numbers of things, please coordinate with NEMO and the police in relation to appropriate security.
Yes.
I want to make that point. The other thing is this, and it's connected. Although the government said that you can bring your barrels in duty-free, and the 25 charge is not there, that should tell you that we are not telling people that they mustn't bring barrels. All I'm saying is that when you send in your barrels, bear in mind this, the barrels are taking a couple of weeks to come, first of all. It is better you send money immediately. And one of the things which we have to try to be careful at the port, if you have, at Christmas time, we will have 20,000 barrels. And you see this sort of activity both at Port Kingston and at Camden Park. Now we are going to have even greater activity because donors are sending in large shipments of supplies. So the port is going to be highly congested. And the history of disaster managements tell you that you should try as best as possible to keep your port, while busy and efficient, not to be overly congested with small individual packages. We're not saying not to bring them. And we gave the duty-free concession up to the end of June. Persons twist that now and say that Ralph says, if you're sending anything, you have to send it in NEMO. And then a person say, well, I ain't trust NEMO to give it to who I want to give it to. There is a public health emergency with COVID. There is a national disaster emergency. I have not declared a state of emergency under the Constitution. We are using the law as a shield and not a sword. I repeat that over and over again. In less than 2 months' time, the hurricane season starts on June the 1st. We have already, the people who track hurricanes tell us that we are having an above average active hurricane season. 17 named hurricanes in the Atlantic season. Doesn't mean that we will get any of those 17. But all it needs to put another layer is we getting a bad one. And then again, there are questions of supplies at the port. I would just like persons to know, well, if I say something, Ralph must have a reason, a good reason for saying it. Let us interrogate the reason. Just don't superficially have a particular kind of a reaction. I would be the last person to tell you not to send something for your family, because we encourage you generally to send things for your family. But things which you can buy in St. Vincent with the money, better to send the money. And if you're putting things together, put things together in groups so that they can be dealt with in a more efficient manner at the port. I remember with Dominica, when Maria blew down Dominica a few years ago, enthusiastic persons from Trinidad, good-meaning citizens and also Dominicans in Trinidad, sent a lot of packages on a boat, and it stayed in the harbor in Dominica for about 7 days before it got unloaded. And some of the stuff were perishable. They spoiled. And there was this thing about the government of Dominica is heartless and so on. It wasn't that. I know when they come from New York, they come in containers. But even when they come in containers, it is better if they come in a manner which causes least management problems on the port. And that is the whole point I'm making. And if you can send money for something to be bought here, send the money. It's not to me, it's to your family through Western Union or any other money service. And I want to say this further. Remember the first day when the weekend and when the Sophia had blown, we were in a difficult period. And the Monday, I said that people must come to work still and as best as you possibly can, even though I know it's difficult, and that I emphasize money services must be open and all the rest of it. And people are saying, well, some are saying I should have locked down the town because people... The point is this, there are certain things which are needed. And we always have to give the thing a little more thought. What I call system 2 processes in the brain than just reacting at system 1 level processes. Please. And I want all of us to cooperate with one another. I just want to say, I want to thank the government of Trinidad and Tobago for sending the 50 security persons. 40 are coming in today from Barbados, then another 8 plus 8 from Grenada and St. Lucia respectively. I want to say this, that there may be individual decisions made at the shelter which you may not like, or which you have a quote-unquote complaint about. I just ask you at every time, count 10, count to 20, be calm. Just be understanding, because we love you very much. And we have a lot of hard-working people stretched, including volunteers. And it's not easy. It's a big challenge we have on our hand. We are not in normal times. And that's why in rebuilding, I made a point yesterday to several entities who come in NGOs and other people, governments. What we have here in the humanitarian effort and for the rebuilding, it's not just a question of resources being important and technical skills being important. They're very important. But what has to hold this thing together for us to advance and build back stronger and better is social solidarity. And we must not lose that social solidarity. We must not lose it. Because if it frays, F-R-A-Y-S, if it frays, if it becomes tattered or broken, it is going to be extremely difficult to build back better and stronger. It's going to be extremely difficult to hold it together. This thing called social solidarity, which we have had thus far, let us keep it going and let us strengthen it. That is the basis for our humanitarian effort, the basis for our recovery. The organizational issues, the resources, the technical skills and so on are vital, but they have to be grounded on this. And therefore, I don't want to see antisocial behavior, people trying to grab things from a passing vehicle. You have a problem, we can get some water there. There may be an error, there may be some omission. I understand the human instinct, but I don't want to blow that out of proportion because it wasn't something people hijack with guns or anything like that. It's none of that. It is just some people wanted some water and grab. They should not have done it. But we have to make sure that the opportunities do not present themselves for that kind of antisocial action. But fundamentally, we have to stay together, keep the solidarity going. I just want to say yesterday, we had Carlos James led for us. I joined it with the World Tourism Council. Yesterday, Kisal Melissa Peters led with other persons in the discussion with the Clinton Foundation and dozens of other NGOs. I joined that discussion. I had a long conversation with Lord Ahmad, who is the Minister of State in the Foreign and Commonwealth Office in the United Kingdom. The day before that, I had spoken to the Minister of Foreign Affairs from Canada. We are doing a lot of work on an ongoing basis with a number of different agencies and governments. I don't have to talk about all of it here, just to tell you broadly what is happening. And this thing is multifaceted. Mm-hmm. There is, for instance, when I say, I spoke yesterday about an error which took place in relation to a 14-year-old child who had a child and with the family, and that's been taken care of. That family is living at a house, a very good house, and with all the various supports. So I've been advised. There's a case where somewhere else, because of some difficulty, they moved a family which included an elderly person about 90 years old. When sensitive decisions like these are being made, not that they're being put out on the street clearly, but you don't want to move somebody from somewhere to go somewhere else unless there's a very special reason. And if you're doing the moving, for whatever reason you have to do it, it must be done with the greatest of sensitivity and love. You're asking, some questions have come in.
Yes, Prime Minister.
Yes.
Several. Two of the trucks for TNT went to Baga yesterday with water.
Yes.
And they're returning today with water. So says Superintendent John. Over
Oh, wonderful
400
news.
Over 400 additional water tanks are arriving today. Royal Caribbean vessel Serenade of the Seas has 40,000 gallons of water. That's a message from Bishon John. There's a message here, Prime Minister. Are there any special arrangements in shelters?
But I just want to say this. In relation to all of this water, Bishon, you'd be probably listening to me. Make sure you organize properly with Nemo, with Benji, with Julian, because Julian is the political point person dealing with some of the logistics. Make so that we get it done well. Water is coming in from Dominica. The Venezuelan vessel yesterday unloaded water. They gone to St. Lucia to pick up a lot of water. I don't know if they have left yet. They should have left. And they could make those turns, those trips, and so on and so forth. While all that is happening, we know what Gat is doing with his teams and to bring things back to some level of normalcy. Yes, sorry.
Yes. Are there special arrangements or shelters for persons with conditions such as prostate cancer? I assume cancer and any other major illness.
Yes. Well, and this is a very important issue which has been raised here, not only in relation to that matter, but in relation to other things. The early identification of the problem and transmitted, in this case, to NEMO, because the Health Services Committee has people there. We will get those individuals in a guest house, because the person don't necessarily have to be hospitalized. And we have to get somebody to accompany them. Or if that is not available, we have to get a home helper to go and stay there also. And we have done situations like this. But you need to just get yourself in the system through NEMO. Or go, I'm saying this too, go to the clinic in the area. And I hope the nurses are hearing me. Take the information and get it to NEMO. Get it to the Health Services Subcommittee of NEMO. It's vital so that we get the information.
Can there be a Western Union or MoneyGram in the Credit Union building at South Rivers, seeing Georgetown can't operate at this time?
I can ask that. I can ask that. I don't know what are all the logistics, but I understand the problem. It's a suggestion worthwhile.
Yes.
And Julian, if you're hearing me, and I'm sure you're listening to me, because I'm told that people.
He is Prime Minister.
He's listening.
Yes, he is.
Julian, if you heard that about South Rivers, if you can talk to, I know you have been in touch with the Western Union people about trying to have better accommodation, whether that is possible in the circumstances. Because we have space. GECO will have to give the okay because it's their building. I know you're trying to do something with downstairs at Peacemont and so on to lessen the numbers that we see outside of Western Union and so forth for another outlet and things like that. So please, if you hear me, go ahead with that. Because when I leave here, I have back-to-back meetings with a number of different entities from across the region and the world.
I think the other issues, Prime Minister, speak to persons who don't have water, and I think we've cleared that up. The last couple of days we've been speaking about that. I mean, we would be inconvenienced for a bit, but it's a work in progress. And I think some of the issues they're asking,
and it's
some of that.
It's getting better, but it is not yet where it should be. And for somebody who hasn't had water for a couple of days, to tell them it's getting better, is not great comfort. But there we are.
I think this one might interest you, Prime Minister. Are there plans to expand the capacity of NEMO to take calls during this time? Are there complaints people not getting through? In fact, I know some persons who want to volunteer to answer phones. You know?
Well,
So,
this is, again, I've spoken to Nemo about this. I know there's been some improvement. Julian?
you want me to get him on the line, Prime Minister?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So, in the... Okay,
And
you can go ahead.
because you can call Lime and you can call Lime to get this thing, extra lines organized. I am almost every time you call my office to you have to be in a queue because it's
Your call has been placed in the queue.
yes. I it is a challenge.
Yeah. So we're going to try to see if we get Minister Francis. And,
He's been doing fantastic practical logistical work.
hello, good morning.
And Soboto with the love box arrangements. And Julian is there.
1 second, Prime Minister.
Camilo has been mobilizing significant finance. Just by the way, the insurance system, CRIF, which had been helped to be fashioned through the World Bank IMF system, the premiums which we pay, they don't cover volcanoes at all, broadly in the system. But they have just yesterday called me to tell me that, and the Governor of the Central Bank, Antoine, had said that he was going to push it. The CRIF board is making an ex gratia payment to us, even though we don't qualify, even though the volcano is not covered. So that we should be getting some money out of that in the region of about $6 million EC dollars, which can fill a hole. Julian?
Wait, Prime Minister, just a second. All right, so he's up there. Okay, go right ahead, Prime Minister.
Julian, a few logistical things which you may have some up-to-date answers on.
Mm-hmm.
I know you had spoken to me about the money services. You're trying to see if you can get better accommodation and decentralized accommodation.
One has been arranged. I'm arranging the other.
Which one you arrange?
Western Union.
To go where?
Well, at Peace Memorial Hall downstairs, but it's not quite ready yet. It's not ready yet, Tim.
Okay then, but that's good news.
Yes. I just got contact information for the regional controller of MoneyGram, so I'm going to talk to him in a while.
Okay, the other thing too is that South Rivers is making a very interesting request. I don't know what is the extent of the demand in that area, but I think it should be significant. Particularly, you have people up in Byra who haven't come out and so forth. They're wondering if a small unit can be put at Geku's office in South Rivers for Western Union, a decentralized one, to cover some areas there. So that's a possibility. The other thing is this: your team. If we can get, I know, I put in plenty things upon you, but
I'm a custom prime minister. It's your habit, and you do it publicly, not privately.
well, we are like twins in this struggle. We have been in it so long together. No,
Yes, sir.
the more lines at Nemo. You know.
Yes, I'm going to free up all those incoming lines. We got 20 cell phones last night, and Demo picked those up, and they're going to be used for outgoing calls. So all incoming lines will be freed of outgoing calls.
Oh, that's good
So
news.
people will have quicker and easier access to Nemo.
Okay. Now,
Yeah.
I had spoken to Corsell yesterday about the cleaning up of Argyle International.
Yes, we started yesterday. We spent about 4 hours. Well, the guys worked until about 9 o'clock last night.
Now,
We have been experimenting with it. There's not a manual on it. There's not another island that had a ash on their runway for that length of time. Barbados has some. But we have to get some extra equipment, which I will speak to you about as soon as you finish your program this morning.
okay, now we will have the resources for the equipment, and I don't know how swift you can get it, but
Yes, well, I'm already in conversation with the minister in Trinidad.
can we would we have it open for tomorrow afternoon?
No, sir, definitely not.
Would we have it open for Saturday to accept?
I can't give you a commitment yet, PM, until I get the equipment. One room, one broom, one suction broom, and 2 water bowls. I can't do it any time that you want it done, Prime Minister. Jesus Christ was the last miracle maker.
all right. Okay, but
But it has my attention. I've been out. I spent 3 hours out there yesterday.
yes, okay, because I had told when I spoke with Corsell and she told me what she and her engineers were doing.
Yes.
I told her at that rate we're not going to move, and that she must touch base with you.
The plan is in place, but we need the equipment to execute the plan. So I'm following up. I'm supposed to get on to the Minister of Works in Trinidad in a while, and
It would be wonderful if you can clear it in time for American Airlines to land on Saturday
on
afternoon.
Saturday? No, sir. I'm not promising you that at all. Sir.
All right, Julian.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Minister Francis.
Okay, I don't know if there's anything else.
I think you've basically cleared most of the issues up, Prime Minister. So all things being well, we'll see and speak with you tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock.
Absolutely, and I want to thank Gart and Simone and naturally Professor Robertson. I know you got some special bread pudding yesterday, which he and the team enjoy very much, with a particular kind of brandy sauce. You know, it's I know he was on cloud nine with that.
And he got the end, right? The piece that you decided.
But we have to keep our spirits up.
Yes.
And we do our work with humor. I know we get frustrated. I know. I'm just asking some persons at the fair hall, the fair hall government school. They had asked that I drop by there. I visited several shelters already, and I wanted to go there yesterday in the early evening, but I just got too many things at the office to coordinate and to do that I didn't get there. I'm hoping after lunch I have a meeting on Zoom with a diplomat at 1. So I'm hoping sometime between that window and to get back for 3 o'clock for the CARICOM meeting that I can get to Fair Hall and come back. So but they know that I just want to tell them I heard, and if I can get there, they know, when they see me. If they don't see me, they will know that I got overtaken by events. But I've been apprised of a challenge, and it's been dealt with. Thanks very much for everybody who listening.